Hey, what's up? Welcome back. I am really excited about today's video where I interview a fellow cancer survivor named Jennifer. Now, I've been following Jennifer on Instagram since my diagnosis, and I just knew there was something super special about her. And I got so much out of this interview, even for myself, and I am so glad she shared parts of her life with us, including challenges that she's had in her marriage through her diagnosis. So this interview is quite long, but I really encourage you to watch it in full. I tried to cut the heck out of this thing to make it short, but it was just so good. So whether you just have it on in the background while you're getting dressed, or you have it on in the kitchen, or listening to it while you're driving, I really do think whether you're a cancer patient or not, you will benefit from this information. So here it is. Enjoy the interview. Okay, I am so excited to be here to interview a fellow breastie that I found online, and I've always been encouraged by her posts, by her strength, and you can tell that she's really come out a new woman from this breast cancer. So I want to introduce you to Jennifer. Say hi.
Hi, thank you, Monica, for that awesome introduction.
Absolutely. So just to start off, we're going to talk about going flat, and that was a choice that you made during your diagnosis. First, tell us a little bit about your breast cancer story.
Sure. I was diagnosed in April 2018. My daughter was about 8 months old at the time, and I was breastfeeding, and I thought it was a plugged milk duct. And actually, cancer hadn't even crossed my mind, except one of my girlfriends we're the same age and also have a baby like a month. Hers is a month older than mine. She got diagnosed with breast cancer a month before me. And I had found the lump and tried to work it out. Like, when you're breastfeeding, you work out some lumps, but nothing was happening. So based off her experience, I went and got it checked out. Obviously, it was cancer stage 3, invasive ductal carcinoma, triple positive breast cancer. And you can probably attest to this too, but being so young and would be considered quote unquote healthy, it's so mind blowing when you actually get into this community and you realize how many other young women are being impacted by this disease.
I had no idea. And I still get blown away at how many young people have had mastectomies, like we both have, that have gone through chemo. So when did you decide that you wanted to have both breasts removed?
One of the factors was that I was already stage 3. And to clarify, I had lymph node involvement, and then there was also a mammary and in the chest lighting up. So that is and the size of my tumor was pretty large. So that was one factor, is being stage 3. I kind of was thinking if I have the other breast, will that cause me more anxiety? Peace of mind was a factor. So that's kind of that was kind of what was leading my thinking. It's so hard because you have such a limited time to make these huge decisions. And it feels like it's such a rush. And so I just kind of did as much research as I could and just tried to, employ as much critical thinking as I could, and just also my intuition, and just kind of made the best decision that I could.
I think what's great is that you're resourceful. You find information and you present it, which is great. I think it makes you more powerful to make an informed decision.
So I had that information, and then I had also done additional research on the implants. And at that time, both of those, because it was the same office, different plastic surgeons, but both of them were highly recommending the textured teardrop implants. And at that time, I knew that those were linked to autoimmune and lymphoma. And I brought that up, and they were like, oh, no, these are safe.
When you talked to the doctors about that implant and they said it's fine, after that happened is when the big research came out.
Right? Yeah, the FDA recalled all of those implants. Yeah.
The FDA recalled all of those implants. That is amazing. How did you feel when you heard that?
You should have listened to me. I am an informed patient. You don't know everything. That's how I felt. I just felt like I was grateful to myself for doing the research, and also grateful that when I went into their office, I wasn't swayed. I held true to myself and my intuition and what I'd learned. And that was pretty powerful.
I think that's an amazing example of how to be an advocate for yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. And you're right, doctors don't know everything. They're very smart and they know their field and industry, but there are certain things that we have the power to control in our life, and that is our decisions with our body and what we decide to put in. Talking about going flat, so that means just a double mastectomy, no implants.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel beautiful as a person?
That's a really good question. And so I will say, like, initially it was really hard. Like, it was obviously an adjustment. You know, there's a lot of beauty and femininity attached to breasts. And I found myself, like, when my husband and I would be watching TV and a woman with breasts, you know, like maybe she'd have cleavage or something, I just felt really insecure about that. And it took a long time for me to be okay with me, and like, and not even okay, but just like love my body regardless. I just like, just appreciating how far I've come and what it does for me. And so there's been a lot of redefining beauty. Before I had cancer, I was like, I look back and it's clear to me now that I was definitely subscribing to a conditioned version of beauty. And I define it differently for myself now. And I'm just like so much more comfortable in my skin, and I'm more confident. And it's like, that has nothing to do with my breasts. And that didn't happen overnight, but I'm there, and it feels really good.
I just like, seriously, this whole conversation is so encouraging for me because, you know, being flat on one side, I see it every day in the mirror. I'm reminded of cancer every day. And it's hard some days because I want my breasts back. I want my old life back, but we know that's never going to happen. That's not the way cancer works. But you being able to find beauty in yourself has, like you mentioned, has nothing to do with breasts at all. And I find that I just admire that so much in you. Like, I have a little tear just because it means so much. Because that's hard for a lot of women after cancer. You know, a lot of women have implants and don't have nipples anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They have to give up their nipples. Even people who haven't had cancer that are BRCA positive, that have the gene mutation, have had to give up so much. If someone came to you today and said, Jennifer, I need help loving myself and getting to where you are, what would you tell them?
Oh, that is such a good question. When you talk about beauty, and one thing that I do, she's a manifesting consultant. Her name is Lacey Phillips. You can follow her on Instagram, but I subscribe to her. It's called The Pathway. And a lot of what she does is the exercises that you work through are, there's like meditations and journaling, but it's really, what that does is it gets down to those self-limiting beliefs and emotional trauma. And it's really hard. It's hard work. And there's a lot of digging, and it gets emotional. And when I first got diagnosed and I was tapped into Chris Wark, and he was talking about how you have to address your emotional trauma. And I'm like, I don't have any emotional trauma. I'm fine. But everybody does. It's a process getting there and figuring out what it is and like what your self-limiting beliefs are. And that's kind of where that kind of ties into the meditation too, because when you're calm enough and you're still enough, and you're actually like mindful, and you start paying attention to what your thoughts are, you start learning what your self-limiting beliefs are. And then you can kind of figure out like, where did those come from? And like, that helps you overcome what those are. And then you create a new belief, you know? So a lot of the affirmations that I would tell myself, I have the Louise Hay affirmations book. And so I would just read one of those a day. And there's also like, there's one that I would repeat often. It's like, I'm healing, I'm healthy, healing, and cancer free, or something like that. But the meditation has been really, really, really helpful with just tuning into yourself is that's like a really big key.
Do you have any recommendations for meditation that maybe some of the listeners could tune into?
Yeah. So I use the Insight app, and it's completely free. But what's really cool is if you find a practice teacher that you really like, they have gratitude walls, and you can pay them. So that's a nice way to express thank you for the work that they're doing. So that's typically what I do for my meditations. Is I have kind of like a playlist on that app.
Tell me about after your diagnosis, what has changed in your life as a person?
Everything. I've read this in books too, where they say if they were to assign a personality attribute to someone who has had cancer, there's a lot of people pleasing. And I was a huge people pleaser, and I wasn't very good at holding boundaries. I consistently put myself last, and I just give till I'm depleted. And that was just my MO. And since then, I have taken I've overhauled my mentality, my emotions, my food, what I put in my body, what I put on my body, like how I think. I feel like since my diagnosis, I'm more in line with my authentic self. I have found out who I am and really what I believe. And it's just been really, yes, cancer sucks and a diagnosis sucks, but it just led me to me, I guess. I don't know how to say it.
You seriously gave me goosebumps when you just said all of that, because I don't think people realize that is something that comes from the diagnosis, are the gifts of cancer. We're not thankful for it. We would rather say no thank you, but through this you evolve into this person that maybe you've been longing for your entire life, and like you said, your true authentic self. Now that you've had your mastectomy, you've gone flat for a while, how is your relationship now with your husband?
It's good. Oh man, I don't know.
You want to skip this question?
No, I don't,
Okay.
because I feel like if I talk about this, there's going to be another woman out there who experienced what I went through. And I'm going to be honest, my cancer diagnosis was very challenging for my marriage. Going through chemo and just having a baby and all these things, it really, we struggled. We struggled a lot, and we went to counseling, and that was really helpful. And now that my husband said this, cause we were separated for a while, and we even talked about getting a divorce, cause he's like, you're not the same person at all. And I'm like, and at first it was kind of it hurt, but it's also now it's no, I'm not. I'm so much stronger, and I'm so much more me. And so it's been a work in progress. We're still working through it, and we're still together. But it was hard. And the intimacy part was an adjustment, just kind of figuring out what's comfortable. And, no, that's a really good question. And okay. At that point I was I remember reaching out to other women on Instagram and just being like, well, how's your husband helping you or supporting you through this? And I was so relieved when I talked to one woman, and she was like, he's working a lot. He's not really around. I'm kind of on my own. And I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one. It's hard. It's so hard.
It's hard.
The human experience. Yeah. But
I think it's amazing that you're able to share this story with us, because there isn't this perfect situation through cancer, and there's going to be different struggles people have with relationships. And you being so courageous and vulnerable, sharing this, I know that other people are going to connect with and say, whew, I am not alone.
Yeah.
And how this is going and what I'm experiencing. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I know that it's very personal. Looking back on your journey, if you had to tell your younger self something encouraging to get them through what you've been through, what would you tell your younger Jennifer?
I was so scared, and I had so much fear, and a lot of my decisions, with my diet, and I felt so desperately, I just wanted to survive so bad. And I just was grasping at everything, and it wasn't enough. And I was doing so much, and I just completely changed everything in such a short period of time. And I just still had so much anxiety. And I would tell that younger self, like to to make decisions, to get to a place where a decision can be made from love instead of fear, because that is just that, I just feel like that's such an important component. And I know that's like a pretty broad stroke, and you're like, well, how do you do that? Like, and I don't know how to clearly articulate how to do
I
that,
don't
but I
think
just
you have to know how to do it. I think a lot of this is just figuring it out as you go, but knowing that you can do it. We don't have to have all the answers. That's the
yeah.
part of this journey, is that as long as we're trying and as long as we're moving forward to figure it out, that's enough.
Yeah.
For you. And it sounds like that's where you're at now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you have a daughter who's 3.
Yep.
What do you want to teach her about everything that you've been through, especially with your body and what it means to you?
So ever since Larkin was little, I've been writing her a letter like every month. A lot of what I've learned I share in those letters, but day to day, we go on a walk every day. We're eating our vegetables and our fruit. And I'm like sharing with her how to nourish your body. And then she, we meditate at night. And I just recently started teaching her, we say affirmations at night too. She says, I am lovable, I am worthy, I am awesome. And it's so cute to hear a little 3-year-old say, I'm awesome. And then she'll say, you're awesome, Mom.
I think that's amazing. I think being able to say that about yourself at such a young age is truly going to be impactful. And it will become easier as we get older, because I could probably tell you a lot of us adults don't say kind things like that to ourselves. We don't say that we're awesome or that we're beautiful. So I think it's amazing that you're able to mold her to be comfortable saying those things. So hats off to you and the very intentional steps you're taking with your daughter. What do you think you'll explain to her as she gets older and starts to develop and realizes that mommy does look different because of being completely flat? Have you thought about how that conversation may go, or what you would want to say to her?
I think that will probably just be, when those questions come, it'll be more of a reinforcement of this is part of why I'm so adamant about eating healthy and taking care of your body and being cognizant of what you're putting on your body. It's just going to be an extension of that conversation, and doing the best to set her up for health.
I think that's great, that turning it into something positive. This is why we eat healthy. This is why we eat fruits and vegetables. I think that's great, because you could look at that and say like, oh, mommy went through the worst thing in her entire life and it was cancer. And it could be this cloud that you carry with you. But I think you turning it into, this is why we live the way we do.
Yeah.
Like this, and because of this, and it's going to be a part of your story and her story. And she's going to be amazed at her mom. When she puts those together. Like I think that with my son, because the other day he asked me, is your boob going to grow back? And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. So we talk about like plants and flowers growing and becoming beautiful. And, he doesn't fully understand, but he'll understand one day that it's different. And he has the pictures of, of course, me being bald and all those kind of things that he did for me. It's just interesting how they'll understand that. But I'm also so proud, because I know he's going to be proud of me too. He's going to be proud of the fight I fought for him. And I'm sure Larkin will feel the same way. Like, you fought for her, you fought for more time, and we gave up pieces of ourselves for more time. That's what it equates to.
Oh yeah.
The most beautiful thing on my body, the most delicate and intimate piece, just to give me more time. At the end, that's what I look at it as. Take this so I can have more.
Yeah.
And if that's what they wanted, if that's what the universe wanted, then take it. Take both. I don't care. That's how much my little guy means to me. And I'm sure your daughter as well. We would give up anything and everything for more time.
Absolutely.
Would you say that it is possible to feel more beautiful going flat than before cancer?
Say 100% yes. I feel more beautiful than I did before cancer. I'm just so much more in tune with myself. I'm more comfortable. I'm more confident. Do I look different? Yeah, but the inside is like, I'm just like my best version.
Love it. I feel more beautiful now than I did before cancer. Isn't that amazing? Like, even though
Yes, I do too. I love
I
it.
just like, I feel alive, I feel empowered, I feel healthy.
Yes.
And, you know, cancer could strike at any time, but I feel like I'm doing my best to
Hmm.
fight every single day. It's not over. It's never really over for cancer patients. So every day when what I put in my body and how I feed my soul, how I feed my brain and things I
Hmm.
watch and think about, it definitely plays a part in feeling happier. And I think it's important for people to know that this is a process. You don't just wake up and say, wow, I feel better than I did before cancer. People are probably rolling their eyes at us right now because that's not how it works. Like you mentioned, it's a process, it's a journey, it's about discovery, the emotional baggage that we carry that we don't even realize we're carrying, and trying to understand all of that. It is
Absolutely.
worth it, but it has to be intentional. You can't just evolve and say, oh, one day I feel better than I did before. No, it is intentional, and taking care of yourself and reminding yourself how amazing you are with those affirmations, I think, is a really great step in getting used to hearing your voice saying those kind things to yourself. Thank you so much for talking with me. This has been so helpful. Like I said, you gave me goosebumps like as you were talking, because it's just, I think a lot of people want to be where you're at and to feel amazing and to be on the other side of cancer, to know that it's possible to feel beautiful in your body, whether you have implants, whether you have nipples or not, whether you have breasts or not. It's not even about that when it comes down to it. It truly is developing and growing ourselves from the inside out.